Welcome to my new show, Creator to Cashflow. So many of you know me as Julia Guerreri. When I first started this podcast, I really just wanted it to be a place for me to share and go a little bit deeper. I used to be a mindset and manifestation coach, and that was the first creator business that I scaled. Well, really the second, because my first one was as a Poshmark reseller. Second one was as a manifestation coach. And now here I am teaching other creators how to monetize. So when I was filming my podcast, I realized that the old name, Break Out of the Matrix, was so tied to my old identity as a mindset and manifestation creator and wasn't super aligned with where I see the brand headed. And for those of you that don't know, I just recently went to the acquisition.com workshop with Alex and Layla Hormozy, and I kind of just realized that I wasn't putting my best foot forward with my podcast. I was more so just trying to be consistent. And that definitely got me really far because it got me consistently posting for 2 years. We're almost at 100 episodes, which is really cool. So I realized that, yeah, it had gotten me like that far, but it wasn't feeling like my best foot forward. And I recently invested in a web designer and a whole like branding like deck, I guess you would call it. Yeah, I just kind of realized that now I'm so aligned with the brand and the branding that I was like, I'm ready for this new name. And I recently just did a live webinar, and this name, like Creator to Cashflow, just came to mind. And I bought the domain, I secured the Instagram handle. There's nothing on the account right now. Yeah, like I got everything that I needed to make this a success. And then I just started to realize that I want to rebrand the podcast. Like I want to rebrand the podcast with this new name, kind of just get like re-inspired to do this work and all of the great stuff. And that's where I'm at. So this episode is just going to be all about my evolution as a creator, why I came up with this name specifically, and where it's headed. And I think this is going to be the perfect episode for people who want to evolve as creators. So like I said, like I started even like way before that, I started as just like a general influencer, like talking about skincare and money and beauty and everything you can name. Then I had a separate account that was as a thrift store flipper, like a flipper. Like I was getting clothes from thrift stores, from donation bins, and I was selling them. And then the third one was manifestation creator, and now content creator coach. Creator monetization is kind of how I describe my business. So buckle up, save this one for later because there are going to be no details missed. So let's go all the way back to 2019. This is when I first discovered manifestation and the law of attraction. I was working a corporate job at the time. I was a financial advisor working at a bulge bracket bank. And there was a guy that worked there. And he basically just said to me, like, Julia, I think you would really like this book. And it was like the first day I met him. And I'm like, you don't know me. But then I just realized that this was exactly what I needed because it was the book The Secret, and I discovered manifestation and spirituality and the power of manifestation. So I read this book and it kind of just opened my eyes to like new possibilities. So I was experimenting with manifestation in my own life for about a year, which then brings me into 2020. And this was like the rise of TikTok. So I'd been doing this like self-love, healing, manifestation work. And I just kind of came to this point where I was so passionate about this stuff and I was so passionate about content creation. I just paid off my debt. And yeah, like I just kind of realized that I wanted to share more about what was going on real time in my life. And I was really passionate about, I mean, what was cool at that time was being like a blogger or an influencer. And that's what I did. Like I just created that kind of content around like beauty, lifestyle, fashion, like all the things. And then when I posted my first manifestation video, it blew up. Like it went super, super viral. Yeah, I was just like, wow, I didn't know there was such a community around manifestation and spirituality. And it just landed really, really well for people. And as a creator, what's really cool is that you can use these kind of experiences for your own. You can use the experiences you have in your life for your content. And that was like the first realization that I had where I was like, what do I know? Right. And it's like expert has to be a beginner first. right? I love that saying. So I had to be a beginner at content and manifestation and spirituality and all these things, but I was really like upfront and honest. And I was like, I did this money manifestation technique. Here's how it worked for you. And I think one of my favorite parts of content creation is the storytelling. So what I did from day one, and I still do now, is I use stories that were happening in my personal life to fuel my creation. And these are the best creators because you're being so authentic about what you're doing that you're just like, you could never be wrong, right? Because I'm just real time sharing what is happening in my life and the learning lessons and using that to fuel my education business. And I work with a lot of creators. Like I've worked with over 1,000 people in the lifetime of my business. We have almost 300 people in our main academy. We've had over 500 people in our memberships and low ticket digital products. So I've worked with a lot of people. And I've just come to this conclusion at this point in time that a lot of people feel that they need to be something that they're not. And like, this is deeper than creation and business. I mean, this is like real personal development. So, what I just have concluded at this point in time is that to be a really great creator, you have to be honest at the point you're at in your journey. So, if you're at a point in your journey where you're like, I really feel called to help moms. I feel really called to help people with manifestation, right? With that, whatever it may be, you need to just be real about where you're at. So, like, for example, which I have notes on my phone here, which just kind of brings me into like what happened in my journey. Like, after 2020, I did my first paid brand deal. I had like 5,000 followers and I got a $50 brand deal. So funny because I'm not going to say who the brand is, but it ended up being this like huge influencer now. And she was like Forbes 30 under 30. Yeah, it was just like really crazy because at the time I was like, is this a scam? Like I didn't really understand it that well. Yeah, like I just did not understand influencing. I mean, it was such a new thing in 2020. Like the people that were influencing were like huge influencers like Emma Chamberlain and Cartier or Addison Rae, right? At that time doing like her first brand deals because she was starting to go viral in 2020. So after that, I'd moved to New York City. I just met my partner. I quit my job and all these things were happening. And I think the reason why my brand blew up so quick in 2021, like I went from 5K followers to 10K to 20K to like 30K. And it was because I was just sharing what was happening in my life real time as it was happening. So I was saying, like, hey, I just moved to New York City. Hey, I just met the love of my life. Hey, I just went on this trip. And this is what makes creation so great is the authenticity behind it. So I never really like had a plan of like, these are the things I'm going to talk about. Like I said, I coach a lot of people and a lot of people think like, oh, I'm going to just sit down and create content and create my brand pillars and all this stuff. But I actually think it's so reverse. Like you have to live and experience, and creativity comes to you in the most random times. So for me, I'm constantly just like jotting down ideas. I'm saving things that I see as inspiration. I'm texting with my editors and being like, let's make this video. Let's put out this tweet. And this is a real like creation process in my eyes. So for me, like I still make all of my social media content, but I don't just like sit down and try to like draw from a blank canvas. That takes forever and it's usually not the best content that I put out. So I'm kind of giving you like a back and forth of like, here's what I went through and here's how I now have like learning lessons that I wish I could have told myself at that time. So now it's like 2021. I launched my first course. It was around $300, like $297. I was doing one-on-one coaching. I was doing some done for you services like social media management and video editing and web design and just anything I could do to make a little bit of extra money on top of my job. And then I quit my job. So I had these other streams of income and I made my first six figures in 6 months. And then 2022 was really difficult because I was trying to do everything. And this was like such a newbie mistake that I made that I can now see looking back. It was really just because I didn't have the right people in my corner teaching me about like high performance or being a really successful business person. And the biggest killer for me in 2022 was not focusing on one thing. I was so distracted, like trying to launch every single month. 1 month I'm doing a course, 1 month I'm doing one-on-one coaching. I had no idea what customer journey was. I mean, I was literally just throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. The beginning of that year was pretty challenging because I just felt so alone. Like, even though I had my partner and I had friends, like, I didn't really have anyone that was much bigger than me in front of me. So like I wasn't really consuming like Alex Hormozy content. I mean, maybe there was people like Gary Vee and stuff like that, but not in a close enough proximity for me to actually be successful. So the coaches that I had hired at the time, they were good, but they didn't really have businesses that I wanted to have. Like, I basically was investing in coaches that had made a lot of money, but they didn't necessarily have the kind of business that I want. And I found myself chasing the money. Like, I was like, oh, this person made millions of dollars, so I should learn from them. And then I just realized that I didn't really resonate with one, the business model, two, the way in which they were making money, and it didn't feel aligned for me. So I feel like the first like 10 months of 2022 were extremely, extremely challenging because I wasn't looking up to people that I could see myself like on that pathway moving forward. But I think you can learn something from everyone. And to be honest with you, like I've reflected on 2022 a lot, like just personally, like in my journal and my meditation with my like current coaches and stuff like that. And I realized that 2022 was a year of teaching me what I do not want. And I think when you can figure out what you don't want, it becomes very clear what you do want. So I just realized that I don't want a business that I can't control. And what I mean by that is like the business that I have now, like I have a sales team, I have a fulfillment team. I know where, my leads come from. I know where the sales come from. Like it's so easy for me to spot the bottleneck in the system. And in 2022, like I was running my business off of like purely intuition and like vibes. Like I don't feel up to it, like I'm not going to work. I'm on my period, like I'm not going to work. I'm going to take a break. And I realized that was doing way more harm than good because I was stressed out all the time. That was also the year that I had gotten off hormonal birth control. So like I was going through a lot of like health issues as well, just like a lot of changes. I mean, I hadn't gotten my period for like 8 or 9 years. So I was also going through that and dealing with, I mean, I was like overweight for me. I mean, I didn't even weigh myself at that time because damn, I would have not been happy with what I saw. But I was just like binge eating. I was living in New York. So I was going to all these like delicious restaurants, which I do not regret by any means. But like I wasn't taking care of my body. And I was like just skipping my workouts. I wasn't really like putting my best foot forward in my workouts. And it was a hard year. And I did multi six figures. I did a little over 200K in 2022. And it was just hard. But in October of 2022, I invested in one of the greatest mentors that I've still ever had, which was Vanessa Lau. And Vanessa just showed me how to really run a company. Like she was the first person who taught me about a P&L statement, like how to track my finances, how to make the right hires, and just everything that it really took. Like I saw the behind the scenes of a successful online education company, like a multi-million online education company, which is the kind of business that I have. And she just opened my eyes to what was possible for my type of business. And it was so inspiring to me because I realized that one, like I didn't have a company, I had a hobby. And this was the breakthrough that I had at the end of 2022. And I realized that it was only working if I was working. And that was not going to be my highest form of leverage. So I enter into 2023 and I also got really honest with myself about my business. And I've never actually said this before, but like this was a huge internal breaking point that I had for myself. It was that I read the Alex Hormozy book, $100 million Offers, read it in 2022. I thought I understood it, but I totally did not. So I reread it in 2023. I made a whole like literal action item worksheet attached to it that I now give to my clients. And I tell them like every single person has to read this book and do this worksheet. I just realized that if you want to make more money, you need to solve more expensive problems. So like a great example of this is like, do you want to be a nutritionist or do you want to be a celebrity nutritionist? Right? So a regular nutritionist might just see like ordinary people, and ordinary people, I mean, depending where you live, make $50,000 to $60,000 a year. I think that's like the average salary in America right now. But if you're working with a celebrity, their average income is multi-millions per year. So you're doing the same thing, but you have a different target market. And my dad always told me this because when I was a financial advisor, I mean, what we were selling was 1% of their assets under management. Our typical client had $1 to $3 million. You could do the math if you have 50, to 100 clients. So I realized that I was solving inexpensive problems as a mindset and manifestation coach because a lot of people were coming to me like, Julia, like, how do I get out of debt? Right? Because that was my story. Julia, how do I quit my job? Right? So the level of client that I was helping, it got me to, like I said, multi six figures, like over 300K. But I was like, I want to solve more expensive problems. And then I realized I want to solve more expensive problems. Plus, I am really good at making money. And I thought it was just money manifestation. But I realized like I am super motivated and driven by money. And I was just like very upfront and real with myself about that. And I just came to that conclusion of like, I want to help people make money and I want to pick a target market that lights me up and that is profitable. So that's when I found the intersection in the creator economy because I was like, I've been a creator since 2019 when I was literally getting free skin, face masks, and I was putting them on brand. And I always wanted to be an influencer, always wanted to be a blogger, which is what it was when I was in college. Always wanted to have like a really successful like to know a page and I don't know, I just saw like so much potential for myself there. Plus, I love like entrepreneurship and business and making money, so I just blended the two together. But remember, that took me 4 years to figure that out, 2019 to 2023. Like I tried everything, talking about personal finance, beauty, fashion, Poshmark, like anything, you name it. So by 2023, I just started to have like all these breakthroughs. And I think it was part of it being like more time in the game. Like I had more time in the game to realize where my faults were, like binge eating when I was stressed with work or skipping my workouts because they weren't put in on my calendar. I mean, ever since I started putting my workouts in my calendar, I've never skipped one. Like seriously, unless I like travel, right? But then I'm not looking at my calendar, which is why. So I started to make all these changes and I started to actually follow through with the commitments that I made to myself. Listen to this on a podcast yesterday. I started to follow through with the commitments that I made to myself. And I just had come to this conclusion that, wow, I had been not respecting myself. I haven't been eating right. I haven't been exercising. I haven't been running a successful business. Like I haven't figured out the way. And I just got so honest with myself. And in January of 2023, I reread Think and Grow Rich. Remember, I reread $100 million offers, reread Think and Grow Rich, which are now books that I want to read every single year. Might have to actually go read Think and Grow Rich again on my walk right now. And I made this letter to myself and I was like, I'm going to make $1 million by the end of the year. And of course, end of the year 2023, it happened. I made my first $1 million. So because I'd made this commitment and promise to myself, I found a way. And this is what I realized like through my journey with mindset and manifestation and why I believe it was so essential to have that business first. And it's so funny, I just like I didn't dissolve the LLC, but I just opened up a new LLC and like changed the name. So like that old identity feels totally gone. And like now with the podcast being gone too, I just had come to this conclusion at this point in time, like I'm ready to take my business seriously. And like, I thought I was taking it seriously, but I really wasn't because I wasn't keeping the promises that I made to myself and I didn't have a real business strategy. I had a hobby that was making me a lot of money. 2023, I started investing in like amazing mentors that ran like awesome businesses behind closed doors, not just people who knew how to make money. And that was the difference. Like I was so drawn in to like social media marketing. Like I made this much money and I was so drawn in that I was so blinded by how bad these companies were behind the scenes. Like bad. I mean, people making 500-600K a month and paying their employee like $3,000 a month. Like bad. Like they had one employee paying them $3,000 a month. I mean, I don't know who in America can live off of that with just one full-time job, right? So like just like bad shit that I saw. So I just realized like I needed to change the people that I was looking up to and I needed to really change the way that I was doing business because I wasn't doing business. I was a glorified hobbyist. And that was a huge wake up call for me. Like I was like, I'm ready to be a businesswoman. So 2023 was the year of massive success. I had hired my first, like, they're all contractors, but like my first contractor that was like really like hands-on with us in 2023. I made so many hires that year. I made mistakes. I had to fire people that year. I had to let go of contractors. Like, not super easy, but it was the people that helped me scale. Like, I could not have done it alone. And I really stepped into being a CEO. Like, basically, the first 3 months of the year, I just focused on nailing the system. And then months 4 to 12, I focused on, if you watch my latest YouTube video, the who, like, who is going to help me deliver this mission forward. So yeah, like that's what I did. I hired people, I created systems, I created a way to repeat my success. And like that was the secret for 2023. I was like, here's how we're going to get leads, here's how we're going to get sales, here's how we're going to do marketing. And I was consistent. Like I was telling you, I do my podcast every single week. I do my YouTube, right? A couple times a month. I do my posting every single day. Like these are the things that I committed to myself. And when you honor the commitments that you make to yourself, you become unstoppable. And that's how you build confidence. So this was my journey, and like my journey as a creator and a business owner. And that's why I'm so passionate about being a creator CEO, because most people who have online businesses don't really have businesses. They have profitable hobbies. Like you need to learn how to like really grow and scale a real company. And that's how you're successful in this lifetime. So where are we headed now? 2024, rebrand of the podcast, new website coming out soon, new branding, creator to cash flow. My goal, like moving forward, and what I can really see myself doing for the next 10 plus years is helping creators monetize. I am so passionate about the creator economy. I'm so passionate about online business. I'm so passionate about being a CEO, all the lessons, the mistakes, everything. And because I'm so clear on this, I'm so ready to honor this new commitment with myself, with the podcast and my YouTube channel, my long form content. So here's what you can expect from me here. Weekly podcasts, non-negotiable. I've posted every single week since I started my podcast, except last week because we're going through the rebrand. So every single week, YouTube video every single week. Social media, you can keep up with me daily. Stories, posts, all the things. That's where you can see me. I have teams running behind me. I have a media team. I have a copy team. I have a sales team. I have a fulfillment team. Like this business is going to the moon. I mean, you could go watch my latest video about how I'm planning to scale my company to $1 million a month. And this is where I'm headed. And like, I'm just so committed to my brand now that the brand is so clear. And when I didn't have the clarity, it was more just like, let me try it. And like I said, it was a hobby. It's a 4-year hobby that I had to building my brand. And now that I'm so clear, like I'm so ready to just hit the ground running and take off with this brand and really, really focus on my personal brand and scaling and all the great things. So here's where we're at. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. And I will see you in the next podcast of Creator to Cash Flow.